Are you ready to unlock your full potential and achieve your personal, professional, and financial goals? Welcome to Remarkably Simple, the podcast dedicated to helping you do just that. I'm Moneke Fields, and I believe that with the right strategies, anyone can achieve remarkable results. Whether you're a seasoned leader or just starting a business, this podcast is your guide to achieving your goals with simplicity and efficiency. Let's embark on this journey together and make success simple. All right, everybody, welcome back to yet another episode of Remarkably Simple. And I would like to introduce you today to Mr. Jeremy Funderburk. He is the leader of the Never Work the 40 movement. He has a fantastic story and some really exciting accomplishments that he's made. Jeremy, thank you so much for joining me on the show today.
Moneke, thanks for having me. I just want to start off by just saying, it's a real honor, it's a privilege, and I just want to give you your flowers for just what you do, for stepping out on faith, starting your business, starting a podcast, and just bringing value to so many people. So flowers to you.
Thank you very much. I love that. I love the imagery of bringing the flowers and also spreading and sharing them. So I agree that we can give such great value. Let's get started.
All right.
I would love it if, for the sake of the audience who maybe hasn't heard of you, if you could just share a little bit of your background and what is it that brought you to this never work the 40 concept?
Yeah, it's crazy. I love to just tell people I'm just a guy.
Yeah.
Really nothing special. High school educated, never ever really wanted to work a job ever. And I was taught the 40-40-40 plan, like most people were. To everybody listening, y'all were probably taught the same thing where you go to school, work hard, get good grades so you can graduate and get a good job. So I was getting ready to get married. So I decided to take that corporate route just so I could make enough money to provide for my wife. Long story short, I became a top producer of this company. They wanted me to go a year, built their book of business by $1 million. I did that in only 3 months, and they rewarded me by saying, "Oh man, you rocked it. Thanks for everything you've done for us. We don't need you anymore." So they had all my stuff packed up in the box, waiting for me at the door, which led to me and my wife just having a conversation where I was like, "Hey, I don't feel comfortable leaving our financial future in the hands of somebody else. And if I can do $1 million in sales for them in 3 months, I can make at least 6 figures working for myself."
Mm-hmm.
And we stepped out on faith. We started a company, got to a point where I was able to constantly travel, work less than 10 hours a week, and still be able to make $10, $20, $30, $40,000 in a month.
That sounds absolutely phenomenal. And, prior to starting, we were just talking about how sometimes we encounter challenges and setbacks. This is so exciting to hear what you've done and where you are right now. But tell me a little bit more about sort of what were some of the obstacles that you faced and how you presented, how did you get through them? It sounds like you've got some kind of a beast locked up inside of you in terms of your ability to just get it done and in record time. So I want to know a little bit about how you make it happen.
Yeah. And it's crazy because I tell the story so short and it sounds like it was such a small time frame,
Mm-hmm.
but I had to learn a lot. Like we talked about beforehand, I really had to overcome in the past detailitis and want to be a perfectionist. But luckily, my journey started. I know in our first conversation, I talked about I started studying personal development and stuff in the 2nd grade.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of my background was actually as an artist growing up, and I was a perfectionist. I was a published comic book artist before graduating high school, but people would see me work on a comic book, and I would draw a page, and I'd go to the next page, and I'd be 5 pages in on the book, and then everybody months later, they're like, "How's the book coming along?" I was like, "Oh, let me show you this page I just drew," and it'd be the original page but better. It's like, "Oh, you redid that one?" Yeah. And then months later, it's like, "Oh, you redid it?" Because as I would go through the book, I would get better. I was like, "Oh, well, the first pages I drew were bad," and I got caught in this cycle of perfecting, and never doing.
Mm-hmm.
So through that, I learned, oh, Jeremy, you just have to get stuff done. And then
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad my mentor gave me a book called The Magic of Thinking Big.
Mm-hmm.
And in the book, it talks about the three failure diseases: Excuseitis, detailitis, and procrastination. And if you
Mm-hmm.
do any of those three things, you're guaranteed to fail. So it's like, okay, Jeremy, stop procrastinating, stop focusing on the details, don't make excuses, get it done.
This sounds like the opposite of what anybody's wise advice would be. Like, stop focusing on the details. But we've all seen people I've been the person who got so bogged down with how is it going to work and working on the mechanics that the point was missed altogether. And to your point, I'm maybe cranking out now. I'm not a cartoon artist, but I would be cranking out, I don't know, something like 1 page a month, maybe, not publishing comic books. So
It's
crazy. So I
so
think that this
crazy.
the magic of thinking big and those three ideas, to be careful or at least aware of those three diseases. You said
Excuseitis,
excuseitis
detailitis, and
and
procrastination.
procrastination. And what is the remedy for those? Like, it seems like you figured that out.
Action. You just got to take action. To put it more harshly, my most recent coach, when I worked actively with now, he said, yeah, bro, procrastination is just suicide on a payment plan.
Oh, wow.
And I was like,
That's
wow, I
harsh.
felt that. I was like, I wasn't even procrastinating at that time. I was like, I felt that one.
It cut. Yeah. Let me get up and move. Like, what's my next step? Yeah, for sure.
But it's just action cures all. That's one of my other mentors says action cures all. So if you just take action and like I commit first, I figure the rest out later. I'm like, yep, I'll do it. Yep, consider it done. It shall be done. And one of my affirmations that I speak in the mirror is, uh, I am my word, and whatever word comes out my mouth is what exists. So if I speak it, it's getting done.
And one of my favorite teachers says the how is none of my business. I
Mm,
just need the commitment, right? And I need to start moving forward. It's not my job to figure out how everything in the universe is going to come together to help make it happen. I just need
exactly.
to move. I think this is so fantastic. And it absolutely sounds like, with this remedy to those three common diseases, that you could do anything. I wonder what stops you from doing everything, right? Like, you could do anything with this kind of mindset. Why aren't you all over the place like so many people,
Yeah,
distracted and chasing squirrels?
it's crazy. I was talking to a friend last night actually, and he was talking about another mutual mentor we have. And he was like, yeah, it's like he says, you can do anything, you just can't do everything.
Mm-hmm.
And me being me, I immediately disagreed. I was like, no, that's stupid. You can do everything. You just can't do everything at the same time.
Or perhaps can't do it all by yourself, right? Like, I love this phrase that keeps coming up, but you have so wise when you understand the value of a team. I think we talked about this in our last conversation, and
Hmm.
working smart, you've got some really big ideas. And I know that you coach people in
Yeah.
strategies and methods that they could use to really upscale their business and their output and how much impact they're able to have. So I would love for you to share just a little bit of the secrets that you help people with some of these struggles, because I think they're pretty common.
Yeah. Well, one of the big ones is what we just talked about was overcoming that procrastination, detailized
Mm-hmm.
perfectionism. I tell people that the first thing you're going to do, especially if I'm coaching a coach, is we got to launch an MVP, which is the minimal viable product. Like, don't perfect it, just launch it. And then we sell it before we even created it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very common for my clients to have a $20,000 day or a $30,000 day before they even created their programs. It's because we can pre-sell it. We just take the action. And I believe anybody, any person of integrity is going to fulfill on what they sold. So just sell it. If you're an integrous person, you're going to put it together. And then I just tell people, all right, like we just talked about, you don't go as far as your dream, you only go as far as your team.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to build a team, but don't build a team for the sake of building a team. Because before you delegate, there's some things you can automate. as we talked about before, I know you're a
Mm-hmm.
queen at helping people automate things with the podcast. And
Mm-hmm.
so if you can automate and you can delegate, you can go really, really far.
And I think that is so smart. It's really easy to get caught up with just faulty thinking, having the focus be on all the wrong things, thinking that somehow you're building strength and laying a foundation and working on details that are going to matter later. To your point, we see a lot of examples of folks who clearly have perfected something, and I mean it is beautiful, but
Mhm.
when it's tested, it doesn't deliver, or the interest isn't there. And
Exactly.
it's
That's the
just
big.
a waste of your energy and the value you hoped it would bring, it doesn't do. So I agree 100% with your idea that if you really have integrity and you really do aim to serve, you're going to get the attention for the thing that you're offering first, because you want to make sure it lands in the way that the people that you're selling it to really need. So I love that you highlight that as a strategy for folks to um, just really up level their work. So what's something else that you help individuals do besides have 20 and $30,000 days?
Just get clarity and actually become the CEO of their business, like we was
Mm-hmm.
talking about. There's a good book called A CEO Only Does Three Things. And it's, they manage people, they manage numbers, and they manage culture. If you're doing anything outside of that, you're not the CEO. If you're checking your emails, you're not a CEO, you're an admin assistant. If you're editing your videos, you're not a CEO, you're a video editor. So I help people figure out how they built their business and step back into that CEO role. Because most people, they go from employed to self-employed,
Mm-hmm.
where now you get paid less, you work more hours, and you have more risk.
Yeah,
And
that
I was like,
makes such sense.
and that's not the American dream. We didn't start our business to have less lifestyle. We did it so we got more life and more lifestyle. So we can spend time doing the things we love with the people we love. So I help people structure their business the correct way so they can actually enjoy their life in their business and still eat the fruits of their labor.
In our previous conversation, I remember you sharing an example about somebody that you worked with who had a really good product and a good service that they provided, but they were just thinking about it too small. And I think that this is a concept that is perhaps thought about like it's overdone. And it is so appropriate that very often the exact thing that we need to get more of the liberty and the freedom that we seek is to think bigger,
Yep.
to expand, to kind of go large. But I wonder about other, applications of that or examples from your experience and people that you worked with.
Yeah, I can just say me, for example. My
Mm-hmm.
clients got mad at me because they saw everything I delivered in my program. And then there's this other lady who delivered so far less than me. It was like she was giving almost nothing, but she was charging $15,000 more than me and consistently doing over $10 million a year for the past several years. And it's like, your program is better than hers. You do way more than her. Why are your prices so low? Granted, these are the same people who, when they originally bought from me, they're like, I never spent this much money in my life.
And now that they see it differently, it's, I think we discussed that I have a background in education. 24 years I was in the classroom and in public schools. And, there are times when your students are schooling you, right? When you have to
Yep.
just take a moment and go, okay, teacher, this is your lesson. And I guess you responded to that appropriately.
Yeah. And my prices can be up there, but then I still have my lower ticket stuff also, even to the point where I actually took my $25,000 program and gave access to people now for only $97 a month.
Yeah.
But I do have my higher programs in the back end, but you learn so much from your clients. Another example of that I love to give. I had one kid who was financing one of my programs, and he was 3 weeks late on his payment. It had no intentions of making his payment. So his idea was he's going to hop on the coaching call and just try to bash my program. And he gets on there. He's like, "Well, I don't like this. You could this. You should have done this. This." And I guess he thought like the other people were going to rally with him,
Right.
but they rallied against him. And there's like 8 people going at this one guy. And I'm like, yo, no, it's cool. It's like, it's cool. All right, I'm gonna make this adjustment. I'm gonna add this, I'm gonna add that. I appreciate your feedback. And afterwards, one of my clients like, everything he was saying was total BS. And I was like, yeah, but if there's any chinks in my armor, I want to be able to fix it. I want to
Right.
give the best program possible. Just because I start with the minimum viable product doesn't mean it stays the minimum viable product, because over time it will become the most valuable product in the market.
Yeah, I love that. So it was always an MVP, right?
Always.
But that view of the value changed from minimal to maximum or
Mhm.
most. That's something I've never heard of before. And I keep having flashbacks to our previous conversation when we were just chatting around about preparing for this podcast. I wonder if there are some common examples of challenges that you see. I know you work with a lot of coaches, but you help businesses do the work of scale as well. What are some of the common pitfalls that you see people experiencing these days?
Lots of them. So many of them.
Hmm.
Most people are in their own way. That's the biggest thing. So people really need to grow themselves first. And that's the biggest key that everybody misses. Because at the end of the day, your business will never outgrow you. So if you're trying to have $1 million business, but you're a $50,000 person, you will never have that type of business. And I think it was Jim Rohn who said it best, that if someone gives you $1 million, you best become a millionaire really fast, or you're going to lose all that money.
Exactly. I've never heard that Jim Rohn quote, but that is spot on. And it makes me think about not everything is business and sales and marketing, but everything is business and sales and marketing. Because now that I'm working in the area of business, having been a school leader, this is exactly what I confronted. When I became a principal, it was immediately apparent that I better become a principal or the principalship was going to eat me alive, right? Like that's what it
Mm-hmm.
was designed to do. And I think that this other point that you make about how important it is for individuals, no matter who you are, whether you're the leader of your business, the leader of your home, the leader of whatever it is that you're showing up in, you've got to lead yourself first and
Yep.
show up for yourself first. Be the best first. I think we all get it twisted. And we think that when we pour out of us, that we're going to be somehow giving all this great value. And it's actually the reverse, that we have to make sure that we're fortified, like you said, and strengthening the chinks in our armor,
Mm-hmm.
which is going to bring us more resilient. And I love to talk about sustainability because I think everybody's seen a good idea that didn't last, right? Like to be able
Mm-hmm.
to maintain whatever is that virtue and value that you have to offer and have it last past you, that would be ideal.
Yep.
Um, and, very often not the case. So that's such good advice. What's something else that you see as a pitfall?
Um, yeah, so after, in which 98% of success is all mental.
Yeah.
And I don't care what the endeavor is all, even to the point where I'm getting so much crap from my family now because I did this post at my, they know I don't like going, like, I am anti school, I'm anti job, I'm anti college, because best case scenario, you end up at a job. So it was like, I'm not going to support that.
That's
So
not
they
my
made me
vision.
go, they forced me to go to my cousin's college graduation. I'm like, all right, cool. So I did an Instagram reel, which has been one of my most best performing reels recently, about how college is a scam.
You did not do that at the
At
graduation.
the graduation.
Oh my gosh.
And I was talking to my family because they're like, why would you disrespect your cousin like that? I was like, I ain't say nothing about her. The people really disrespecting her are y'all. Because I know her value comes from who she is and who she is. So I know she's going to be successful no matter what. But y'all think her value comes from a sheet of paper. See, the real accomplishment in college isn't the degree, it's developing the ability to set a goal and to work towards that goal until its attainment. That's where the real ability comes from. So it's everything is a mindset. And once you get the right mindset and the proper perspective, everything becomes different because your perspective always affects your performance. how you view what you do will always affect how you do what you do. So most people jump into entrepreneurship with the wrong perspective. And one of my first mentors, he told me the only difference between a multimillionaire and a ditch digger is simply the way they think.
Mm-hmm.
And most people just don't get the thought process right. And when you don't get that right, everything else falls. They start working on the wrong activities. They don't work on income producing activities. They work on minimum wage activities. They start trying to focus on the things that just don't matter. And that's the biggest mistake people are going to make. They get in, they think, oh, my company's going to be so successful, Moneke, because look at my logo. Look at it. It's beautiful. Look at my website. Nobody's ever going to see your website or your logo, bro. But I
That
see
is,
it time and time again.
yeah, I think you highlight so many important ideas right there. Like, first of all, something that you constantly refer to here is not only the amount of reading that you do, and then the application of the concepts that you read, right? So that you can just rattle them off on your fingers and talk about what that looks like in action. But the second piece I hear as a recurring theme is the value of mentorship, right? Like, it's so easy to have your own perspective, but I'm always amazed when I learn something new, because everywhere I go, every conversation I have, I learn something new that I didn't know. And I just keep rehearsing this phrase: you don't know what you don't know. You need to show up curious and eager to learn. Like, here, I've arrived. To your point, you've graduated college. It's not the end. This is just one accomplishment. And to your point, it absolutely is not who you are. And I think that's so important. I mean, it's a crazy bold statement that you say about your anti-education. And I just had somebody else in another session tell me it was education's all wrong. And I think to a certain degree, if our mindset isn't right, it absolutely is wrong. If your mindset is right, then perhaps it serves you well. If you understand what value you're taking from that and what opportunity you have with it, then, maybe it's not wrong for you. But that powerful mindset that you mentioned, that attitude and kind of having your priorities straight, it's amazing how you say the subtle difference between a person who's doing the lowest, least profitable work and someone who is directing the people who are doing the most, the highest and the most profitable work is literally just a mindset, just a way of thinking, and absolutely opening up more creativity and flexibility. I wonder what are some of the other characteristics that you've observed in people that are sort of able to make that shift from thinking small to performing big.
So characteristics: being open, being a sponge, being teachable. You have to be teachable. And we was just talking about mentorship. Like, it is literally the cheat code. And that was my biggest problem with college. And I went to college twice. You combine both the times I went to college, it still doesn't equal a freshman year. But I went there and I said, hey, I'm going to take these business classes. I'm going to network. I'm going to make a handful of really good connections, and then I'm going to leave. And that was my diet. Cause I was like, I know who I know is going to be way more beneficial than what I know. And at the end of the day, I owned a tattoo shop back then. I had a tattoo shop when I was 20 years old. I'm in this business class and I'm looking at my professor. I'm like, you're a $60,000 a year professor who's never owned a business, talking to a 20-year-old business owner who actually owns a business. I was like, you can keep your theories. I'll take my experience and I'm going to meet some people to further that experience. Right. So, but I don't even know where that tangent came from, but just the value of the mentorship. That's what it was people will go to school and learn from somebody who's going to give them theory from a book, who's never actually had the experience. Whereas I think people are better suited to go find someone who's already done what they're trying to accomplish and learn from them. Or at the very least have access to somebody that's done what they've accomplished. So for me, I know we talked a lot of spiritual stuff on our
Mm-hmm.
other call, and we can definitely go there. But even from a scientific perspective, I like to talk about like when we look at like the laws of physics, right? We have all these different laws, like the law of inertia,
Mm-hmm.
an object at rest will stay at rest unless acted upon by an outside force. Momentum, an object in motion will stay in motion unless acted upon by an outside force. We all hear that. Energy is never created nor destroyed, it just changes form. But
Mm-hmm.
then there's the law of atrophy or entropy, where anything left to its own devices moves closer and closer towards disorder.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, if you're left to your own devices, if you don't have a coach, you're going to move closer and closer towards disorder. Scientifically speaking, everybody needs to have a coach. We need somebody outside of us to look at us, to look at what we're doing, and to help us move, because nothing gets better on its own.
I agree 100%. I think the other thing is that a really good coach is going to not only point out your blind spots and stay a couple or, many steps ahead of you. I think you definitely need to be finding coaches and mentors, like you said, who have walked the path and have access to something that you do not because you're moving forward. But I think another value in mentorship and coaching is its ability to help us be better at seeing ourselves. Because I think one of the easiest things to do is to be completely blind. I talk about autopilot all the time. When I was a school leader, one of my biggest frustrations was that it seemed like I was trying to reprogram something that was determined to stay the same. And if you just let it go, like you said, it would run on its own, closer and closer to disorder, not willing to surrender. One of the best experiences that I've had since I stopped doing that work and started to focus very intentionally on my thoughts, my desire, the goals and vision that I have, and the intentional actions that I take to make sure that those are aligned. I learned that through coaching. I would not be
Mm.
doing that independently if it were not for the coaching that I got while I was just, you know, having disorder swirling around me constantly and thinking life sucked. To being in a position now where even when there are negative things around, I have a better amount of control and I'm much more able to stay the path that I intend because I know what the distractions are. But that is not something that I developed independently. I needed somebody walking alongside me to help me see those things. And now I'm better at it to a certain degree, right? Like there are things I haven't experienced yet. I still have blind spots. That's one of the craziest things about adulthood. We thought that when we got older, everything would get easier. We'd arrive and then we get to, we turn something in our 40s, like I, am something in my 40s, and then we get to prop our feet up. And that day doesn't come. It literally is a journey that we're on.
Mm.
There are always challenges, always opportunities, always blessings, all of it always present if we really stay plugged in the game. So I love this commonality that we have about the value of mentorship and coaching as really powerful tools to aid us in getting to the places that we want to go. One of my favorite things is when a coach says, that's not it. And look, I see you hiding 3 weeks in a row. You shown up avoiding the exact thing that you told me 3 weeks ago you know you need to do. So when are you going to do that? And I
Yeah.
mean, that's what you need a partner for, to tell you the truth, not the part that you want to hear. So
Yeah, that's the
so
thing I
so
love about
powerful.
my main coach. I gave him full permission to just tell me like it is. He tells me like it is.
Yeah. I think we talked about that before. You know, I guess some people do like to be paid to air quote feel good. I don't. I can make myself feel good. I can tell myself it's okay and you're doing a good job when it's not. If I'm working with somebody, I really want them to help me see what I'm not seeing and not do the work for me, but help me to learn and implement things that are going to just raise me up a level. Like I'm going to be functioning at a different level. I feel like that's the point of coaching. And I love that this is the kind of support that you give to people in their businesses. Um, Something that just came to my mind is this concept that I have that, we can apply these sort of ideas to our business or our professional work, but it's really difficult for these things not to carry over into other areas of our lives. I personally feel like I'm a better professional because of the coaching experience that I've had.
Mhm.
I'm a better parent because of that. My financial awareness and action is better. Everything sort of slowly, gradually improves, like as ripples,
Yep,
from that focus and that concentration. I don't know if you have any perspective about
absolutely.
that, but
Yeah, because how you do anything is how you do everything.
I think that's a perfect tagline right there. Sorry to interrupt.
It's so true. How you do anything is how you do everything. And I know we talked about be do have before, and I can go down here now, but at the
Yeah,
end of
do
the day,
that.
who you are is who you are. As one of my mentors would say, who you is who you is.
Yeah, because that's fun.
So it's like it doesn't matter whether it's if you learn. So I, I love it. I got to watch one of my mentors do a training last night, and I haven't seen her do a training in a while.
Hmm.
And like her and her husband are like two of my favorite people on the planet. Like they've had a coaching relationship. They're more like a mentor role right now,
Hmm.
but they don't necessarily coach me in business. But I'm mentored by the example they are in my life. So like I'm just so close with them. Like when they had their first daughter, I was at the hospital that night, like holding their daughter, like very close.
Very close.
And she's doing the training. She's talking about how before she was able to really hit levels of success, she was like, we talk about distraction. She was like, I was just so cluttered. Like everything was just chaos around me, like mentally, because everything was chaos around her physically. And she was like, if I just clean out my car and I start washing the dishes, getting them out the sink, and removing the clutter from around me, it'll remove the clutter mentally. And when she got more organized in her life, she got more organized in her mind, she got more organized in her business.
Hmm.
So everything's going to carry out into other areas. And that's why I cleaned off my desk today, spray cleaned it, everything. I was like, oh yeah, I gotta clean this.
Yeah.
And it's everything comes from who you are being.
Hmm.
So I believe God's success formula is be, do, have, which simply states if you don't be, you can't do. If you can't do, you won't have. If you be a little, you'll do a little. If you do a little, you'll have a little. But if you be a lot, you'll do a lot. And if you do a lot, you'll have a lot. And Monique, this is what's cool. A lot of people, when we want to change our results, right? Like our outputs, like a output's a result. So if people want a scientific formula to success, if you don't like the results, if you don't like the output, change the input.
Hmm.
Like doing more of what doesn't work isn't going to get you the result. That's why I tell
Exactly.
people working harder will never make you successful. Working harder at what doesn't work doesn't make you successful. It only makes you tired. So
Hmm.
if you don't like the output, change the input. So here's the interesting thing: having is an output, doing is the input,
Hmm.
but doing is also the output
Of the
to
being.
being, and being is the input.
Hmm.
So everything starts with who you be.
Hmm.
So even a person will never consistently behave in a way inconsistent with whom they see themselves as being.
Hmm.
And like we talked before, I love words. So even if we look at the word behave, the first two letters, B-E, be, the next four letters, H-A-V-E, have, be and have. If you don't be, you can't have
Hmm.
because you will never behave in a way inconsistent with whom you see yourself as being. So everything starts with the person that you're being.
I love this because this just keeps coming up as a simple sort of plug right there. And a really true concept that brings it down to, like, if you're trying to unlock the mystery of success for you, whatever that means, because we each have a different focus, a different motivation, a different drive, a different purpose, perhaps a different business or area of work. But the principle is consistent across all of the areas. And very often we're focused on all of the things external to us. And to your point, just you showing up being the best version of yourself. And we talked about this, but being and then doing like the person who already has the thing that you're envisioning, that you're striving for, is the
Mhm.
secret to getting it. It's not
Yep.
changing all of the external features and getting everybody else to be something. It's a crazy, funny example that I use with my own kids, but I just share with them how in their dynamics, each of them has the power to completely change whatever circumstance they face together. The only thing that needs to happen is one decides to be different. They don't
Yep.
have to influence the other person. The dynamic automatically changes dramatically if just one of them steps up to the interaction, being different, to your point. And I don't normally say being different. I just say show up, better, or whatever it is that I talk about that. But I love this example. And I tried to get it when we talked the last time, but I want you to say the be do have one more time. Be a little, give us all of that once again.
Yep. If you don't be, you can't do. If you can't do, you won't have. If you be a little, you'll do a little. If you do a little, you'll have a little. But if you be a lot, you'll do a lot. And if you do a lot, you'll have a lot.
I just love that phrase. It's something that I'm going to teach to my children. This value of first having in your sights, where is it that you're going? And then focusing every day on being the person who is going to have whatever that destination is,
Mhm.
and acting from that place. We talked briefly the last time about the messages that we give our kids, and I think it's very fitting since we've just, indirectly, I hope I don't lose any education friends over our earlier comments. But I mean, I know that they're in the trenches and they get it. Being, we talked about what it is that we always ask our kids. What do you want
Mhm.
to be? Who do you want? What do you want to be when you grow up? And you have a very interesting perspective about what we should be asking our kids. And what is
Yes.
that?
So instead of asking, what do you want to be when you grow up? I'm going to ask them, how do you want to live?
Mm-hmm.
And I believe midlife crisis has come up from the point of we have this vision in our life like, oh, I'm going to travel the world and I'm going to do this. I'm going to have this nice house and I'm going to be on a boat. And then, oh, what do you want to be when you grow up? And then they become a profession that doesn't provide that lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
Now, all of a sudden, there's this disconnect. And now people are just going through depression because, and like,
They didn't get the outcome they hoped for.
exactly. So I'm like, how do you want to live? And let's reverse engineer. So, first of all, how do you want to live? And then who do you have to be to have that type of lifestyle? And that was a question that was always powerful for me because I knew I want to be a full-time husband. I want to be a full-time father, but I still want to make millions a year. So who do I have to be to make that a reality? And first of all, is there anybody that's already living like that?
Mm-hmm.
Because if no one else is doing it, is it even possible? If it's no one else is doing it, how do I make it possible?
Mm-hmm. I
Because
love
God
all
told
the
me nothing I
questions.
imagined would be impossible for me.
Yeah, I love all the questions. And for sure, these truths that are great to, study, learn, recite, rehearse if you were a kid in the kind of upbringing where you had to do Sunday speeches and things like that. But more importantly, to make this an application that you have anticipation around and that affects your behavior and the way you go about your life is the way I practice those values. It's not so much about what people need to know about me, but it's the way that I'm operating. This is the way that this is what my faith is to me. That it is absolutely who I am. It's the way I be,
Mm.
and it's what I do, which has complete, impact over the peace that I have, um, the resources I have access to, and all of this, as well as the outcomes that I've experienced. I
Yeah.
think this is such a powerful question, though, about asking our children, how do you want to live so that they get to reverse engineer or put said another way, do the math. What
Mm-hmm.
adds up to make that possibility? And if we don't know what adds up to make that possibility, then we get to investigate to find a possibility, right? Or to
Yeah.
create a possibility, which is a lot of fun. And it sounds like to some degree you've been working some of that out. And one of your key resources is you just shared the secret. You look out and see who's already doing it. Perhaps you're combining a couple of ideas. and trying things out.
Yeah. And you said something that's crazy. And I don't know if you've been able to look at much of my content, but you talked about what I say is one of the greatest gifts you could ever give yourself, and that's anticipation.
Mm-hmm.
And so I love to do this training where I talk about beliefs. And one of my mentors says everything rises and falls in your belief.
Mm-hmm.
So your beliefs will create your thoughts. Your thoughts create your feelings create your actions create your results.
You are talking my coaching language right now. Sorry,
Yeah.
keep going.
So when we have a belief, so most people only look at the facts in life.
Mm-hmm.
And as people, we observe the facts through our eyes and through our ears. And then when we observe the facts, we put a frame around that fact. And what's the purpose of frames? Frames create focus.
Mm-hmm.
So like the reason we put a picture inside of a frame is because we want people to focus on what's inside the frame.
Mm-hmm.
So we put a frame around the facts in the form of a focus, and that frame's gonna have a positive side and it's gonna have a negative side. It's a law of polarity. Everything has opposites. Like no one's ever seen a one-sided sheet of paper, one-sided pancake, one-sided slice of bread. Not
Even the
because
thinnest things have two sides, like a sheet of paper.
everything. And it's not because a one-sided thing doesn't exist, it's because it can't exist.
Mm-hmm.
There's no such thing as a one-sided anything. So if there's a positive to anything, there has to be a negative. If there's a negative to anything, there has to be a positive. So the frame's gonna have a positive side and a negative side. Every fact has a positive and a negative. So we put a frame around the fact in the form of a focus. And if we focus on, and our focus is going to create the belief. And that belief is going to be positive, it's going to be negative. Now, if the focus is positive, then the belief is faith. And if the focus is negative, then the belief is doubt. And most people think that faith is belief, doubt is the absence of belief, but that's not true. They're actually both beliefs. Mm-hmm. Faith is belief in the outcome I desire. Doubt is belief in the outcome I don't desire.
Mm-hmm.
So when the belief is positive, that's faith, and when the belief is faith, then the dots are positive. So the emotion we have is anticipation, mm-hmm. which is the greatest gift you could ever give yourself. And anticipation gives you the energy to do the thing. I love using the analogy of like, I don't know if any of the viewers were like a heathen child like me, but it's like, we all remember like Christmas, and it's like, you go searching through your like the house trying to look for your parents' stash, trying to see if they got you the stuff you asked for. And then when you find it and you see all the stuff you're asking for, come Christmas Eve, you can't sleep.
Yeah.
You're filled with so much anticipation because of the things that you know you're going to get. So anticipation gives you the energy. There's nothing you can't do when you have anticipation. You will do whatever it takes because you know you're going to get the result. But when we focus on the negative, doubt, then that creates negative thoughts, which creates the feeling of anxiety. Mm-hmm. And some people think fear and anxiety are the same thing, but they're actually not. See, fear is caution over a real and present danger. If there is no real and present danger, there is no fear. Anxiety is wasting present energy on a future outcome that is undesirable to me. So in other words, if I'm sitting here in this office right now and a raging pit bull comes through the door and I start getting this feeling in my heart, that's probably fear.
Yeah.
But if I'm getting ready to make a sales call and I'm like, I'm nervous. What if they say no? What if they don't want to buy? That's not fear. That's anxiety. Because now you're wasting present energy on a future outcome that you don't desire. And the key distinction, the fear is beautiful. I love fear. Because if that pit bull comes in here, I'm climbing up on this desk. I'm trying to get out of the way. Fear causes you to move.
Yeah.
Anxiety causes you to freeze. And you do nothing. So if the feeling is anxiety, you freeze. So what action do you take? It leads to paralysis. You do nothing. And if you don't do the thing, you can't have the result. So your beliefs create your life. And the crazy thing about the word believe because I'm a big words guy.
Yeah, just give us one more. What about belief?
Believe, if you look at the word believe, it means to accept something as true. But in the middle of the word believe is another word, lie. So in the middle of a word that means to accept something as true is a word that lie, which literally means to deceive.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that's what we would call an oxymoron. Or you could look at it and say that's a clue. What's the clue? Anything I tell myself about a future outcome, I made it up.
Exactly.
In other words, it hasn't happened yet. So it's just like if I say after this podcast, I'm going to go downstairs and grab some lunch. Is that true? I
You've
don't know.
accepted it as true.
Yeah, for all I know, I could get up, trip over my desk, fall, break my neck.
That would be catastrophic.
God forbid that happens, but
Yeah.
is it possible? Yeah. But if I say I'm not going to do it, does that make it true? So if I'm hopping on a sales call, if I say, oh, everybody I speak to buys from me, does that make it true? No. But if I say they're not going to buy from me, does that make it true? No. Anything I tell myself about a future outcome, I made it up. So anyway, the lies I tell myself about my future will create the results. My
Mm-hmm.
beliefs create my results.
I love it. So I didn't know where you were going about the lie in the middle, and I've not heard it said this way, but I do absolutely teach people the strategy and the skill of creating the story. And I don't mean a story like a narrative, but the one that serves them. What is the outcome you desire? And what do you need to believe? What do you need to think to accomplish that goal? You
Mm,
could just, go with whatever is your automatic thought. You could go with the most common thought. You could believe what everybody else says and what everybody else believes. Or to your point, you could tell yourself whatever you want to tell yourself that's going to help you get closer to that great goal that you've identified. I think this is such a simple thing that we overlook, right? Like how often we are telling ourselves something that's basically determining before we get started that we're not going to get it done. And we're
yeah.
literally choosing, which I think is another reason why it can be very helpful to talk over your thinking and to work with a coach or a mentor, because those people who are not emotionally attached to our ideas are better able to help us do that practice I talked about of sniffing those things out. And I
Yep.
think we can get one of my favorite examples of, I don't know if this came from childhood or growing up with lack in some ways or what, but I will occasionally catch myself saying to my kids when I see them being wasteful about what we can't afford. Like we can't afford. And I've learned to stop myself in the middle of that, right? Like it's not that we can't afford it. It is that I don't want you to waste it. Like let's just be specific, right? We can afford whatever we desire.
Yeah.
So
I would
I
encourage the
think
waste. And one thing that stretched me, which I really didn't want to do. So also, my wife and I, we had a network marketing company. Also hit the top of the pay scale for this company. And as one of the rewards, they sent us all expenses paid to Disney and Universal Studios. And one of the nights they rent out the parks for about 4 hours. So it's shut down exclusively to like us and the other qualifiers.
mhm.
And every ride is open for free. Every concession stand is open for free. We get as much as we want, don't have to pay anything. And to teach us abundance, they say, go to the concession stands, order some food, take one bite, throw it away. Go to the next one, take a bite, throw it away. It was like, because that's what it's like to have abundance.
Mhm.
Nothing's wasted. Like one of my favorite quotes that one of my friends makes me use every time he interviews me is he reached into abundance and took abundance, and yet an abundance remained.
Mhm.
When you're done with an infinite God, you can never take more than your fair share.
I think this is another part of an improvement to your mindset that is just so liberating. Very often we are thinking and operating from doubt, disbelief, lack, need. and the kinds of things that close us off from seeing all of the possibility and the options that are available, whether we're problem solving, a sales approach, or, looking to do something like lose weight. It is so empowering and helpful, I have found, to be
Mm.
aware of the abundance that is available at any given moment of everything. Like, just pick anything, get that thing in your mind, and then walk around for a day and see if you can keep track of how many times you see it. The other thing that I love is this skill. We talked about the gifts that we're given. You said one of the greatest gifts we can give to ourselves is anticipation. I
Mhm.
believe that our body that we live in, first, it's not who we are. And second, it is one of the greatest gifts that we each have been given. And it
Mm.
is a gift that is given to us. Now, we have a purpose to others, right? But the gift that it is to us is like, first of all, the way that it serves itself is fascinating. And we don't have time to talk about that today. But the other thing I love about our brain is that it can kind of go two ways. I like to make the parallel of the brain like a 2-year-old child. If you, like we were talking about earlier, leave it to its own devices, it's going to move toward chaos and make up a bunch of fears and crazy ideas and not be productive and probably riddled with anxiety and, fascinations and all kinds of things.
Mm.
But given a specific, like you talked about, a frame and a particular focus, oh my gosh, the brain is beautiful and will literally go and find all the evidence, the resources, the connections and opportunities that you seek. And I feel like
Mm.
this is, we said this the last time, we could go on, but I
Yeah.
wonder if there's anything that you would like to add before we wrap up, just so we don't lose the people. And maybe
Yeah.
we need to do exactly as we said and have another chat another time.
Yeah, I'm happy as often as you need me on here. I would say if I had to leave people with anything, gosh,
Just
I'm
that
happy.
one thing, because that's my favorite question. What
Yeah.
is the one thing that you think everybody, whether they are professional working in a job and happy to do it, or, looking to get out and do something on their own, maybe they've been doing something on their own for years. They're really underperforming and they would like to see and do, be and do and have more. What is it, this one principle that you feel is just applicable for everybody?
Yeah. If I leave with the most important thing is understanding we do have.
Mm-hmm.
Like once you understand that, and I could talk about that for 2 hours in itself,
Mm-hmm.
but understanding who you are, and I'll leave this, all right, because I think this is important, with just the belief to help you become the person. So we talked about the lies and believe,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So one of the things, it's called the mirror technique. And the mirror technique is basically where you get in front of a mirror and you tell yourself a pack of lies.
Mm-hmm.
So, in other words, what I want everybody watching this and listening to this to do is to just list out all the traits of who you are, or at least the person you need to be, because that's who you are. Write out all those traits in the present tense. So I will even put it, I am so happy and grateful now that, and then just list out all the things of who you are. And then the mirror technique is where you get in front of the mirror and you just tell yourself a pack of lies. And it's the most powerful thing because they say